Africa's energy needs are not being met by carbon-based fuels, but could be by renewable-based fuels. What needs to be done to ensure that that is the case, let's say by 2030, 2050?
Well, I think African countries are already realizing that the transition has to be made. If we're going to try to base African industrialization and growth on fossil fuels, it's impossible financially and environmentally. I think the sheer impact of power generation from fossil fuels, both in terms of financial sustainability but also environmental sustainability, is too much to bear. I think that we have to find ways to incentivize investment in renewables in Africa. As far as the agency is concerned, we're absolutely convinced that the technical potential is huge in Africa. We know that. We know that the knowledge is growing, the technology knowledge is increasingly available in African settings. Governments are beginning to develop policy frameworks that can enable investment in renewable energy, and we're seeing a very strong movement now and an awareness that this is the energy of the future. So I think the real issues are, how do we develop a knowledge framework that's usable? How do we develop information about the trajectory of technology? We're looking at, for example, what's happening with technology costs over time, and we're seeing dramatic decreases in price for solar PV, for wind generation, and so on. Many of these are already competitive off-grid in most locations in Africa. But we're also looking at the possibility of how electricity generation on-grid can also be met in the future from renewables. The secret, I think, is going to be how do we develop an enabling policy framework that allows public-private partnerships that can really leverage investment in renewable energy. But I think all is to play for, and the perspective for that looks good. I think governments understand what the constraints are, what the opportunities are, and our role as an organization is to provide the technological and knowledge resources for them to make that transition.
I mean, Africa seems to be working as one on this, pretty much. How does it fit into the context of the international community? Is the international community there to aid Africa in achieving renewable energy for the whole continent by a certain date in the near future?
I'm an African myself, so let me say that we don't need to be aided. What we need to do is be empowered. We need to have the knowledge. We know we have the resources. We need to know where is the technology, where are the partnerships. And you know, the old notion that somehow development assistance is going to change the development trajectory of Africa, I think is off. Basically, today, Africa spends more on fossil fuel imports than it receives in terms of ODA in total. So I think the real issue is, how do we create an investment framework for African countries which they own and which they can take forward.